Paddle, 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 paddle all the way.
Welcome back to 340 Paddler, and here we are going to take you down the river as far as Lexington. Now, you've started off in Kaw Point, and Lexington used to be the first checkpoint up until 2020, when it is no longer going to be an official checkpoint, but there will be support there for anyone who needs it. So let's get you to Lexington. Now, you've started off, you're in the crowd, you've tipped over, you've dumped your food or your water or whatever else. You forgot your lucky woolly socks or your lucky woolly underwear. Don't wear woolly underwear, that would be really awkward. But you've gotten through, something has happened, or you've forgotten something. What do you do? Well, in some people's case, you turn around and you go back to Kaw Point. Not highly recommended, by the way, because you're going to be fighting upriver. So you have to follow the river. Where do you go? The first point that you're going to come across is going to be Riverfront Park. This is 5 miles into the race, River Right. Now, thankfully, Google Maps has some pictures for sites that I can't find pictures of otherwise, and it helps orient you. If memory serves, the channel is on the far side at Riverfront, so you are going to have to cross the river, but the river is not that wide up here in Kansas City, so not too much of a problem. Usually you do have people cheering here, but if you've forgotten something, your paddler would get here probably in 30 to 45 minutes, give or take. So you would have to be moving pretty quick. It would have to be the sort of thing where you saw them tip, you saw them take off, and you're racing them there. And you're hoping for the best. Now, that being said, where else can you stop that's early in the race? Well, there's also Benite. We're about 15 miles in. This one's really obvious. It's the first bridge you're going to see outside of Kansas City from the paddler's perspective. The channel is on the far side, so you will not be able to communicate with your paddler real well. You cannot shout that distance. We can hear you, you can't hear us. And we can't really hear exactly what you're saying. We can hear cowbells, we can hear general yelling, but we can't hear, hey, how's the high C holding out? That's not going to come across real well. So in an emergency, use Benite. Some people will use it as a very early stop. I don't recommend it because, of course, the channel's on the wrong side. Now, you've gotten through any emergency stops. What's next? Let's start looking at places where you can refuel moving ahead that aren't traditional checkpoints, that aren't going to be full of people. And the first one you're going to come across is Cooley Lake. Now, the problem with Cooley Lake is it's on the wrong side of the river. It is river left, and your ground crew is probably going to be river right, because both Lexington and Waverly and effectively most of Kansas City, as they come out, are going to be on that south side of the river. So Cooley Lake is on the wrong side. That being said, you can easily get there with a little bit of pre-planning. Your paddler moving at 6, 7, 8 miles an hour will be there between 3 and 4 hours. The trickiest thing about Cooley Lake is from the paddler's perspective, and you're seeing this in a high water year. There are a series of wing dikes here, and in fact, there's almost a continuous wing dike with some openings that runs along here. And you're going to come across one of those and look in and go, hey, look, there's a boat ramp. That's pretty cool. And then you're going to realize that you missed it because the next wing dike is right here. So make sure that you know what you're looking for. You're going to come around this bend, and it's going to be on the outside of this long bend. Now, from Cooley Lake, the more common stop is going to be Fort Osage, which you don't see here, but it's actually sort of down in the corner down there. And this is on the channel side, which is fantastic. The paddlers will actually be crossing over and crossing right in front of the boat ramp as they come around this curve. So it's on the correct side for the ground crew and the paddler. Great first stop. You can get your food, you can get your water, you can make sure that you can get off to Lexington. And with Lexington not being an official checkpoint anymore, it becomes that much more useful. Also, Lexington is traditionally really an irritating place for ground crew. There's no shade. It's also very crowded from the paddler's perspective. So look at stopping at Fort Osage, breaking up that run into Waverly into a couple of different parts. But this would be a great place to do a quick stop. Next up, 38 miles in, Napoleon. Now, Napoleon is tricky. As we come into Napoleon, it's on the correct side, which is why a lot of people will make use of Napoleon. So you're coming in this way. And the problem with Napoleon is the ramp has a very strong eddy around it. So as you're looking, I'm going to do a massively exaggerated version of the boat ramp here, obviously. So the boat ramp comes out, and then there's a wing dike that continues out past the boat ramp like this. The thing is, it's right on the channel side, so you get some really crazy swirls and eddies working off of that wing dike. You get a lot of people who will come in, and they will flip coming over that line into the eddy for the boat ramp. So when you make that turn, if you're going to stop at Napoleon, be careful, be aware of the fact that it's there, and maybe go a little bit further before turning into the eddy. You'll have a much smoother transition. I've seen numerous teams capsize coming into and out of Napoleon. But at 38 miles, it's almost perfectly halfway to Waverly and a fantastic place for restocking because it's on the channel side, it's halfway, just a great spot. Then you have Lexington. Now, Lexington frequently looks like this from the water. Here, you get the interesting perspective of someone on the channel. So I am across from Lexington. Looking at it, you can see how wide the river is. You can't really communicate over that distance. Lexington is not a checkpoint for 2020. You need to get to Waverly. However, Lexington is the last realistic stop before Waverly. So Lexington is at 50 miles. Actually, it's at 51 and a half, but that's not that important. Waverly is at 74. So you've got another 23 miles after Lexington with no possible stop. So if there's any question, take the stop. The problem with Lexington, again, wrong side of the channel. You're going to have to cross over and cross back. By the time you do that, it may cost you 10 or 15 minutes, a mile and a half. So keep that in mind. But if you're having problems, it is far better to stop quickly and deal with them than it is to push on until they become serious issues, especially day one. If it's something like, hey, I forgot my sunscreen, get it. Something like that will haunt you through the race. So until next time, this is 340 Paddler, hoping that you keep your paddle in the water.